In today's webinar, we are going to look at invoicing, showback statements, chargeback capabilities, and a few other ways to visualize your cost allocation data in Cube Billing. Oftentimes, we see showback and invoicing capabilities done in Excel. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of Excel examples of invoicing capabilities that might be used to help facilitate your cost allocation processes. The first example we're going to look at is a simple invoicing model. And in this invoice model, it has basic information. We have addresses, we have the bill to, we have dates that are done to auto-populate with a formula. It has other formulas that drive a summary amount. If you want to look at the details, it tells you that a separate Excel tab is available for details. And then it also provides other codes that are used to help facilitate the processing of the data in financial systems. And so in this example, we might have hundreds of tabs. Each of the tabs have formulas. The formulas may feed detailed invoices. The detailed invoices are summarized again and summarize the data into a consolidated invoice, and the consolidated invoices are sent off to the respective clients. A separate example would be a little bit more detailed in that we might have logo information, we have different tiers of service, the service has a description of what's included, and again, it would still have formulas involved that summarize the information, and each of these showback statements might be generated to all of the different clients across the corporation. And that can be summarized at a cost center level, a division, an organization, a client. It could be internal, it could be external. It's used in a lot of different ways. And so in Cube Billing, we aim to do the exact same thing that our clients use today, except we do it in an automated fashion that's completely web-based and provides access to this information in a real-time basis to all clients and users of the application. So when we go and log into the application as a user, they basically have access to a few things. In this example, the client has access to only their information. So this user, we know, has a hierarchy, and they manage, say, 4 different departments under operations. And so when they go to view their showback statements, they can generate their own showback statements for their respective, let's say, 4 different departments. They can pull in information from any period of time. So in this example, we use 3 months worth of data, and from here they can download the raw data in Excel, or they can open up the showback statement. When they open up the showback statement, it will look identical to the original Excel file. And so here's the showback statement. We can see the information, tab through the different pages, and we can take this information and download it as a PDF file, a Word file, or an Excel file that would have the same formatting and look and feel with the data. This showback statement is a summarized invoice in that all the details aren't here, but it gives a high-level overview of what was consumed over a period of time. So this user could again go back in and run a separate report. And so they could run a detailed invoice. Again, they could pick the business unit of interest, and they could download this detailed invoice, which would happen to be in Excel, and all the different columns and rows would be populated accordingly. And again, a client could still have questions about their information, and they could again go in and pull all their information into our web-based pivot table. So again, they would pull the information, open up our web-based pivot table to look at raw data. And so this pivot table has columns and rows, and we can pull in information, whatever is important to us. So maybe we want to look at it by month. So we know we have January, February, and March data. We may want to only look at, let's say, the total amount that was spent. So we can easily remove fields that aren't of interest. We may have tagged some data, and when we tag the data, we may want to look at that tag data. So in information technology, we have tag data. We can drill down into our hierarchies. So we have multiple hierarchies, and we can drill down through all those hierarchies. We may want to look at the totals. So you might have the total amount. We may want to summarize information, so we can use some filtering if we only want to look at transactions that are greater than $0 or look at specific pieces of information. We can do all that in a web-based pivot table, and then we can take this web-based pivot table and download it into a CSV or Excel file for further analysis. And so we provide access to summarized data. We can chop the summarized data into standardized reports that might get a little bit more granular. You have access to the raw data, and then you can use that same raw data in our web-based pivot table. We typically look at this as a showback statement. We also have invoicing capabilities. So let's go ahead and take a look at invoicing capabilities. In this example, we're going to again look at our hotels, and within our hotels we have a variety of hotels within this application. So we might say within Asia Pacific we have hotels in India, and we have a variety of Hyatt hotels in India. Within our invoicing, again, we can have the exact same look and feel as our showback statement. It can be any template that we want, and then we populate the data with that respective template. Our invoicing can be done at a child level, and the children can all be rolled up into a parent level if we want. Each of the children can have a close date, so I may want to close the books on this invoice on a day of the month, and then I want to process the invoice on a separate day of the month. And the primary difference from an invoice capability and a showback capability is that invoicing pulls in all the data since the last time you were actually invoiced. So if you're invoiced on a monthly basis, it's going to pull in all the new transactions since that last invoice was generated. For example, if a credit was applied from data that was consumed 3 months ago, your invoice would have a credit on the current invoice. There would be a credit applied. However, on the showback statement, it would show the credit was consumed 3 months prior. And so we're separating the dates a little bit to look at when you consume products and services and when you effectively paid for those products and services. The last thing that we do is we know that financial systems oftentimes transfer funds from one entity to another. It could be a billing system, it could be a chargeback module, it could be a variety of different things in your financial systems. And on your financial systems, it uses different coding, it uses different formats, and Cube Billing takes all of our raw data and it transforms that information, typically in a summarized fashion, to feed your financial systems. So we could go into Cube Billing, we could generate an extract, and that extract will automatically convert all of our data to mirror what your financial systems expect to see. The last thing that we do in Cube Billing is whenever your system changes, your user profiles automatically accommodate that. So if we go back into the previous example and look at this user has access to 4 different fields, 4 different divisions. If we go into this company and we add a new client, this user would automatically get access to that. So if we say in our operations department, we have a new client called, let's call it XYZ. It's added into our application. And now if I'm a user and I want to log in and look at my report, I know my user setup. Under operations, it automatically says I get access to any new children, so I have XYZ. I could go in and run an invoice report, and XYZ would be automatically there as well. So as your system changes, your user profiles change, and as your user profiles change, that user has access to all the different showback reports, the invoicing, it has access to the raw data, the web-based pivot table, and so all the systems are automatically updated. This is true if you have a handful of clients or thousands and thousands of clients that you want to separate information. Thank you for spending time on today's webinar, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.